Hey, welcome back, friend. Tonight, I want you to let your shoulders drop, unclench your jaw, and pull your blanket a little closer. Let the room grow softer around you. Settle into your pillow. And while you do, let me ask you something that sounds simple, but really is not. When you picture a servant girl in Tudor England, what do you see? A silent figure in a dark corner, perhaps, carrying trenchers and chamber pots, worn out by endless orders, born poor and destined to remain invisible forever. That is the picture most people expect, but the real answer is quieter, stranger, and in some ways more human. Many servant girls in Tudor England were not lifelong drudges at all, but young women and teenagers passing through one of the most ordinary stages of life, earning wages, food, clothing, and experience before marriage, widowhood, or another turn of fortune carried them somewhere else. Service was not always the end of a story. Very often, it was the middle, and that changes everything. Tonight, we are drifting across the Tudor world from the accession of Henry VII in 1485 to the death of Elizabeth I in 1603. A span of 118 years filled with smoky kitchens, rush-strewn halls, creaking stairs, steaming washtubs, church bells before dawn, and the low murmur of girls whose names almost never made it into grand history books. If you enjoy slow history like this, you can always leave a like and subscribe while you're thinking of it, and if you feel like it, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I always love imagining these stories travelling softly through so many different nights, because once you begin to look past the painted kings and queens, you find another Tudor England entirely, one held together by girls with red hands, quick feet, and tired eyes. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear one of them already up before sunrise, crossing a cold floor in the dark, beginning a day that will ask everything of her. So let us step into that darkness for a moment and stand beside her. Picture a prosperous household in England around 1558, not a palace, but a respectable house with a yard, a buttery, a brew house, a kitchen garden, and a hall that still smells faintly of wood smoke from the night before. A girl named Alice, perhaps 13 or 14, wakes not in a private little bedroom of her own, but in shared sleeping space, maybe in the hall itself on a temporary bed, maybe on a truckle bed, maybe on a mattress stuffed with straw or flock. Under her feet are rushes, sweetened sometimes with herbs when the household can afford it, though by morning they also hold the stale scent of ash, damp wool, and yesterday's boots. The word maid, by the way, comes from the old sense of a young unmarried woman, and in Tudor England that mattered. Maid was not just a job description, it was an age, a status, a fragile social condition. Have you ever thought about how tiring it must have been to begin your day before the sky had even chosen a colour? Alice would stir embers, fetch water, carry wood, shake out linens, clean vessels, sweep floors, empty waste, and help set out the first food of the day. In a richer house, tasks were more divided. A chamberer might tend sleeping rooms, a dairymaid the milk, a laundress the linen, a nurse the children. In a smaller house, one girl did a little of everything, and despite what we imagine, a servant girl's life was not always confined indoors. Evidence from early modern England suggests many female servants spent only about half their time inside the home. The rest of their labour carried them out to fields, gardens, marketplaces, wells and lanes, where they reaped barley, picked apples, fetched wood, delivered goods, and ran errands that stitched the household into the wider world. You can feel the day in textures. the grainy handle of a bucket, the sting of cold water, the greasy smoothness of pewter, the rough nap of homespun wool against the wrist. Think about that the next time you grumble at a dishwasher or a laundry basket left at the foot of your bed. For Alice, every task began with the body. Lift, carry, bend, scrub, climb, again and again. And yet, in the middle of all that labour, there were human moments too. A crust of bread eaten standing up, a whispered joke in the yard, a glance through an open door at a gown too fine to touch. That is what moves through these old houses most strongly for me. Not only hardship, but nearness. Nearness to fire, to food, to mess, to illness, to birth, to temper, to secrets. And once you realize how close a servant girl lived to the private pulse of a household, another question begins to glow in the dark. What was all that work actually worth? Now you know how the day began. Let us follow the money, because Tudor service was not simply obedience. It was an economy. It was a contract. It was, in many cases, the expected work of youth. Around 60% of people aged roughly 1524 in England between 1550 and 1650 are estimated to have been in service at some point, working for wages plus bed and board. That is a remarkable number. It means that if you walked through a Tudor village or town, this was not some rare and pitiable exception. It was normal life. Picture Joan, newly hired into a household in Essex. Her parents may have sent her out not because they did not love her, but because this is how a young person entered adulthood. She would eat at another family's table, sleep under another roof, learn discipline, save a little if she could, and perhaps carry a small chest with her few possessions from place to place. The word servant comes from the Latin servire, to serve, and it can sound crushing to modern ears. But Tudor service sat in a more complicated place between labour, upbringing, dependence, and opportunity. Wages were not high. Ordinary household servants in Elizabethan England might earn around £2 to £5 a year, though they also received food, lodging, and often 2 or 3 suits of livery clothing annually. Livery is a lovely word with a practical origin, from the French sense of something delivered or issued out. The clothing quite literally marked that you belonged to a household. In one Essex household in 1550, the laundress, cook, butler, and children's nurse each received 10 shillings a quarter, while the youngest housemaid got 5 shillings. Even in these spare figures you can feel rank. Someone always earned a little more, someone always a little less. Have you ever noticed how money in old records can feel so cold? And yet behind each line is a whole life of blisters, hunger, hopes, and tiny calculations. Joan may have counted not pounds but chances. If she stayed 2 years, perhaps she could buy better stockings. If her mistress liked her, perhaps she would receive cast-off linen. If she protected her reputation, perhaps she would marry a craftsman rather than a labourer. And reputation mattered intensely, because a girl in service lived inside other people's judgment. The wrong rumour could cost her a place. The wrong glance, the wrong pregnancy, the wrong accusation of theft, laziness, or immodesty. Think about that the next time you leave a job and close your laptop with one click. A Tudor servant girl often carried her references in memory and gossip. Still, there is something quietly dignified in the arrangement too. She was not merely fed, she was paid. Her labour had value, however unevenly measured. In a world where so many women's contributions disappeared into family duty, service at least left a faint trail in wages, inventories, and account books. A name, a sum, a quarter's pay. proof that she stood in the world and was reckoned with, even if only in ink. And if money tells us what her work was worth, the laundry room tells us just how intimate that work could be. Let us step slowly now into the washhouse, because this may be the most vivid room of all. Picture Anne at court in the late 1530s, responsible for linen in Henry VIII's orbit. Steam clouds the air, wooden tubs sit heavy and wet slaps against boards. Ash, soap, damp hemp and human sweat mingle into a smell at once sharp and earthy. Here, history gets close enough to touch. The fine linen nearest the skin needed regular washing, even if richer outer garments were brushed or sponged rather than soaked. Some embroidered cuffs had to be carefully removed before laundering so metallic threads would not tarnish. Urine, yes, really, could be used as a bleaching and cleaning agent after standing. Wood ash lye made another powerful cleanser. Herbs such as rosemary or lavender might sweeten the final scent. Linen could be spread on grass and sunlight to whiten. If you have ever hung sheets outside and noticed how they come back cooler and cleaner than anything from a machine dryer, then you already understand a little piece of Tudor wisdom. The word chamber comes from camera, a room, but to a servant girl the chamber was never just a room, it was evidence. A chambermaid or laundress handled the private material truth of other people's bodies, sweat stains, blood, spilled broth, childbirth linens, sickness cloths, and, in the king's case, even foul-smelling bandages. Service meant seeing what no polished portrait ever showed. Picture Anne lifting a basket of linen so heavy it pulls at her shoulders, then bending over a buck-tub, using not just her hands but her feet to work larger cloth clean. Can you hear the splash, the scrape of wooden rims, the low conversation between women who know they must be discreet? Because discretion was part of the trade. A laundress might know pregnancies before courtiers did, know illness before physicians admitted it, know which lord drank too much, which child still wet the bed, which marriage bed was cold, and which was not. Simple as that. There is an almost sacred strangeness in this. The girls nearest the dirt were often nearest the truth, and yet they remained largely unnamed, passing through the edges of the record like shadows carrying baskets. In smaller homes, the work was no less demanding. A girl might brew ale one day, wash shirts the next, carry fuel, scour pots, mend linen, and help care for children, all in the same week. No wonder the body mattered so much. Strong arms, tough hands, a back that could endure. Think about that the next time fresh towels appear in your bathroom as if by magic, or your clothes come back from the wash, smelling of detergent and nothing more. For Tudor servant girls, cleanliness was not convenience, it was labour, knowledge, chemistry, and endurance. And after all the tasks, all the lifting, all the watching and remembering, there remains the deepest question of all. What did such a life do to the heart? By now, you can probably feel her world a little more clearly. The cold mornings, the wages folded quarter by quarter into hope, the harsh soap, the warm bread, the fear of censure, the pride of competence. And the thing that moves me most, looking back, is how easily these girls could disappear from history even while they were essential to it. Not one banquet happened without them. Not one noble shirt stayed white without them. Not one respectable household ran smoothly without someone rising first, sleeping last, noticing everything and being thanked very little. Picture a girl called Margaret in 1592, maybe 16, maybe 20, pausing at the end of a long day by a doorway left open to summer dusk. Her hands smell of ash and rosemary. Her feet ache. Somewhere nearby a baby fusses. A dog turns in the straw. A bell marks the hour. She is tired, yes, but she is also alive inside her own inward world, thinking thoughts no account book will ever record. Perhaps she misses home. Perhaps she does not. Perhaps she is saving to marry. Perhaps she dreads marriage. Perhaps she loves the bustle of service. Or perhaps she counts the months until she can leave. That private interior life is what I always come back to. Because beneath the category of servant girl was a person as dense with memory and feeling as anyone listening to me now. Human nature has such continuity in it. We still measure ourselves by work. We still worry what others say about us. We still hope that effort will lead somewhere kinder. We still want a room to rest in, a meal that fills us, a little dignity, a little tenderness. If this story kept you company tonight, thank you for being here with me and for giving your time to girls whom history so often left at the edge of the frame. If you want to, tell me in the comments what detail will stay with you most, or whether you think you could have endured a single week of Tudor service. And if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past, a soft like or subscribe always helps more than you know. Next time, we might slip into another forgotten corner of everyday history and listen for lives that were once considered too ordinary to remember. But for now, let the rushes settle, let the fires sink low, let the house go still around you, and wherever you are, my friend, good night.